I am Nancy Marashik, and I am the program manager of the TIPS program at Family Paths that holds the internship program. And Family Paths is the agency that we're representing. And this is...
And I'm Kim San Gabriel. I am the program coordinator for the helpline, which is our 24-hour parent support line that interns and volunteers can work on or will work on when you're in your internship. So I help coordinate that.
So Family Paths is a community-based organization serving children and families and parents in a multitude of ways. Our main office is in downtown Oakland, well, uptown Oakland, and our other South County office is in Hayward, although we are currently working remotely. Our hopes are that next fall we will be back in the offices. I'm optimistic.
Yes.
And we have a number of services, clinical services for kids and families and parents, as well as our parenting stress helpline that Kim holds, and parent education classes, so a whole range, fatherhood classes, a whole range of services to support kids and families. Our mission is to strengthen family relationships by providing mental health and support services with respect, integrity, compassion, and hope. And we've been around for, I think, almost 50 years.
Yeah, 48 years, 49,
yeah.
Something like that.
Started as our hotline and have expanded since that time to serve all of Alameda County. And we aim to be both culturally responsive and linguistically responsive, trauma-informed, and are also aligned with the Strengthening Families framework, which is about supporting parental and child resilience in a number of ways.
We're also aligned with the Fatherhood Initiative. So we actively promote services for fathers in all across the board, whether it's clinical or on the helpline, parent ed. So we're definitely providing services directly to them. And the helpline, similar to what Nancy said, all the same things, trauma informed, et cetera. I think our main focus there is to support parents and caregivers, so foster parents, relative caregivers, et cetera, in those moments when they need someone kind of right away. Therapy is great if you meet once a week, but there's all that time in between that you're with your kids 24/7. And so we're there to respond kind of in the moment. And our primary focus is around kind of affect regulation. So helping parents, caregivers kind of get back into a grounded space so that they can then deal with their children more so than us telling them what to do. Not that we won't give advice or guidance and some suggestions, but our first focus is, well, let's get you back to where you can think with the front of your brain. And then let's see if maybe that helps you figure out what you need to do versus us. Here's 10 steps to resolve that problem, because that doesn't usually work. So, and we also have language capacity on the helpline. So Spanish and English at this moment, but we also have the translation line that we can link up to for just about any language in the county.
Yeah, great. And we do primarily serve low-income families. Some of our clinical programs are focused specifically on Medi-Cal and low-income families. In the TIPS program that the interns serve, we actually do have a sliding scale. We have a county, some other contracts that we can serve clients where they don't have to pay anything. So it does mean a little more range, but primarily low income, and often clients who have had really hard things happen, a lot of trauma, community, domestic violence, big challenges on top of what we're all dealing with right now in the world. For anyone who is interested in what they're hearing about, we do hold open houses for prospective interns every year in the last week of January and the first week of February. I believe Friday the 29th of January and Wednesday, February 3rd this year. And people can always check our website for more information or email me. And that's a chance to hear even more about what it's like to be an intern and about the agency in general from me, as well as Kim and some other folks, and also to hear more about the application process. Um, Generally, the typical duties of a trainee with us are the folks are with us for 20 to 24 hours a week. Tuesdays are the required day between 9 and 2 because we have trainings and other meetings in the morning and group supervision from 12 to 2. Beyond that, there's a lot of flexibility, although I do ask that people have at least one evening a week, and afternoon time is also important because of kids and families after school hours. So it's providing, I'm going to do a lot of referring to what we normally do and what we're doing now, because I have no idea what people are going to be doing next fall, but I'm hopeful.
Yeah.
The TIPS practicum is outpatient therapy, which currently is telehealth. But when we're not doing telehealth, it's working with clients who can come to the office, which is different than some other programs at the agency. And we serve children and families and couples, as well as individual adults if they're caregivers or parents to children. So what makes that important is that our placement is a chance to get experience both with kids and families, but also doing individual adult therapy. So even though they're parents, it's their own therapy, which isn't always possible to do under some of the other funding that we provide. And so there's the therapy with your clients, there's the documentation of that and a lot of training around the documentation. We have electronic health records. Our ClinOps program trains people in how to do clinical documentation. It's not quite as intense as what people do for Medi-Cal, but it's a great grounding for if people one day do work in Medi-Cal. 2 hours a week, people do a shift on our helpline, which maybe Kim, you might want to say something about the training for that and what that shift looks like for folks.
Sure. So before anybody starts, either in the TIPS program or on the helpline, we have them attend a pre-service training, which normally, again, in person is a 2-weekend training. So a Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and then another week later, a Friday and a Saturday. And that gives them kind of a nice grounding and foundation for what goes on in the agency and the basics for starting either in TIPS or on the helpline. If we're still doing remote by the next, before, the next training or the next set of people come in, it will probably be 1 weekend and online, but we're still figuring that out depending on what's going on. But yeah, after that, they start on the line 2 hours a week, and they have the same shift every week, so they can schedule that in with their clients. So it's not changing every week, so it's easy to manage that way. And they'll work with a staff person who will oversee them on the line. They don't provide clinical supervision. They get that through the TIPS clinical supervisor, but they will get kind of on-the-job supervision and training as they're on the line.
And telehealth hours.
And telehealth hours
on the phone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's that.
Yeah. So there's thanks, Kim. So the helpline hours, seeing clients, documentation, and then there's also trainings, both specifically for the interns as well as general clinical trainings. We're a Title IV provider, so we have lots of trainings that happen that our interns are able to be a part of as well. And then just a lot of consultation and collaboration with other folks, both in the intern group and the staff. That's of course a little trickier when we're remote, but we're doing the best we can to connect people. I also do an orientation at the start of the year during the first few weeks to get people on board for everything that they're going to be doing, both in logistics as well as clinical getting started. And through that process, we did a lot of helping people get to connect with each other. So our intern cohort has their own separate chat group and they're connecting with each other at other times. And we're a pretty collegial place and really want to hold our interns in a way that they, especially now when they're working remotely, but even when we're in the office, don't feel like they're on their own. The referral process, most of our referrals come through our helpline, either because someone's specifically calling to get a referral, or maybe in the process of having called in, someone says, hey, I think you might want to talk to somebody and have therapy. Sometimes our referrals also come from other programs. We might have a parent in our parent education class who wants to get more support, or maybe another family member, a parent or a sibling of someone seen in our FIT program that's Medi-Cal funded that wants to get their own services. And then some of our programs, like our CalWorks program, we get referrals directly from social services for CalWorks. But even then, most of the time it comes through the hotline, and then that comes to me, and then I can pass those referrals on through our electronic health records to the interns. So I try to divide up people's caseloads so that they are as diverse as possible. And then the interns do their own assessment. So the first 4 to 6 weeks of working with clients is really an assessment process, and they're getting trained and being able to do the assessment process and document that in the initial assessment summary to collaboratively then set some treatment goals, determine if there's a diagnosis or not, and move on with treatment. In the funding for the trainees, the funding sources don't require a diagnosis, and people are getting trained in how to assess if there is a diagnosis or not, so they can rule it out, or there may be a diagnosis. So there is, even though we're not a Medi-Cal program, we're training people to be able to do that so that they will be able to determine if there's a diagnosis or not. But it's not required for the funding that interns are seeing. We start off with caseloads a little smaller. You know, people will usually start with 3 to 5 referrals that, you know, hopefully a number of those will stick in the beginning. And as they get through doing more assessments and getting the assessments and treatment plans done, add on more clients. So at the, you know, by the new year, hopefully building up to a caseload of maybe 8 to 10 client, realistically maybe 8 clients, so that they actually can be seeing enough clients every week to be able to make the hours they need to make. We try not to have people dive right into too big a caseload just as they're getting started. We want them to be able to focus on what they're doing with each of their clients, and also to be on top of the paperwork so that they can then add clients in a reasonable way. So that's, you know, and the other thing I'd say is some trainees come to us with a lot of experience already from jobs that maybe were similar, or they've had other experiences that there, or maybe another practicum placement, and they're ready to dive in quicker with a fuller caseload faster. And other people, this is really their first clinical experience, and a lot of this is really brand new, and they may go a little slower. So it looks a little different for everybody, and we're able to customize it depending on what people's needs are. Anything you'd add to that, Kim?
No, I don't think so. Did you want to say anything about the Finding Peace Within group and that opportunity for that?
I meant to thank you, because I realized I'd left that out earlier.
Yes.
In 2 ways to say. One thing is, we don't have a lot of group therapy opportunities as an outpatient agency. We do, our parent education classes have a lot of material that come up in them, and the interns are not required, but are able to help out with parent education classes. And we do have some group opportunities, and one is our Finding Peace Within group, which has been running for maybe 10 years now, twice a year. Yeah, with 2 of our staff therapists who are trained in sensory motor psychotherapy. And so it is a skills-based group for women who've experienced trauma. And the past 2 rounds, last spring, summer, and this fall, were done on Zoom. So they have accommodated it to working remotely when needed. And in fact, have found that we might do it once a year anyway that way, because it's opened up the opportunities for some folks who might not otherwise have been able to participate. And each time the group runs, one of the interns is able to help out with it. So that is a group opportunity. And I am experimenting right now while we're working remotely about the possibility of the interns doing an an expressive arts kind of support group for teens. So we're looking at some other possibilities like that. Everyone has 2 hours of group supervision a week and an hour, actually an hour and a half of individual supervision a week. So I do the group supervision. That's on Tuesdays from 12 to 2. So that's why that's part of the required time. And then everybody has a different individual supervisor on staff. And when possible, like this year, I do have someone who's expressive arts, and they do have an expressive arts supervisor. I also have a bilingual supervisor who's able to supervise the Spanish speaking interns so that they can get supervision in the language they are actually doing the therapy in and talk about it in supervision in that language. That's not always possible, but I try to as much as possible. And we have, even though 1 hour is a unit of individual supervision, we found that for the trainees, as they're getting started, an hour just doesn't feel like enough. So they are able to have up to an hour and a half of individual supervision with their individual supervisor. Not a BBS thing, but more just in reality, we just want people to get that support. And then there's a lot of informal collaboration and consultation that goes on throughout the week.
Yeah, I would just like to give a big plug for the supervision that happens at Family Pass in the TIPS program. Having been a trainee and an intern or associate, I guess is what they're called now, that was a really valuable piece of the training. And the individual as well as the group supervision together is really supportive and really helpful. And of course, I'm not there now and we're not in person, but when we were in person, it was always easy to find somebody that you can check in with in the moment, whether it be Nancy, she has an open door policy, or one of the other managers or another clinician, to just get some kind of quick support after a session, like, oh my God, this just came up, like, not sure what I should do, or I'm feeling whatever. So I would say that Family Pass ranks really high on the level of supervision that folks get. It's really good.
A few different kinds. I mean, there's the orientation training that happens at the start for the interns. And then throughout the year, there's the trainings that we repeat every year for interns that we're on a cycle with. So people get those trainings. So things like trauma in the brain, play therapy, family therapy, couples therapy. So topics that are coming up for folks that we do every year. And then there's the clinical trainings in general that the interns and the other clinical staff at the agency and the community attend. So this year we just had one on working with the child welfare system. We've just had a series with our staff with Lee Manoir on creating a culturally responsive environment. We've got a risk assessment, all-day risk assessment training coming up next month. So whatever the topics are that are important for us to be talking about as clinicians are happening at Family Paths. And then once people are with us, they're also getting word about many, many other trainings that are happening in the community that are available to them as someone who's working at Family Paths. So more trainings than people could possibly attend.
Yeah, we just recently or will have the gender spectrum training. So working on that, we've done that in the past, and we have another one. Either I just missed it or it's coming up. I can't remember.
It just happened last week.
Okay,
Yeah.
I knew it was something in that vicinity. So yeah, we try and cover all the possible issues that clinicians and the helpline would be dealing with, to give us a good kind of grounding and at least an introduction to all the issues that come up, because most of our families have multiple things happening at the same time, and it's not just this or just that, it's some combination of many things, and it's really helpful to get a good kind of foundation of different thoughts and theories and training on the various issues that our families are facing.
Mm-hmm. And those have continued on Zoom, and then of course once we're not remote, they will likely continue in person. I think I'll just say most challenging has been because we serve clients who are struggling with a lot of hardships in their lives and who are parents. And so there's a lot of family stressors, is no shows and cancellations and stress about making their hours.
Mhm.
Everyone that I've had over all the years that I've been managing the program, which is a lot of years, has always made their hours, but the stress throughout the year about that has probably been the biggest challenge. In terms of what helps people be successful, I think folks who are, well, first of all, who are willing to not know, who are willing to stay open-minded to learning is a really helpful thing. Um, I also think people who just bring, I'm looking for a diverse group of folks. And so people who bring some experience with kids, families, parents, either personal or professional, who have experience with low income populations, populations that have been stressed and have experienced trauma. Um, and Kim, jump on in. What else do you think helps people?
I think along the lines of being open to being in kind of beginner's mind is
Mhm,
the piece that goes with that is being open to feedback, whether
mhm,
it's, strength based, well, it's strength based always, but whether it's kind of on your edges or kind of helping you fine tune something that you already do fairly well. Sometimes that can be challenging for folks to accept the more critical feedback about things that they need to, let's work harder on this and let's switch gears here and let's try something new here, just from my own personal experience. And I think for trainees that maybe have a career change and so they have an expertise somewhere, it's sometimes harder for us to set that aside and come into this role with, I'm a learner and I'm a beginner and
mhm.
I shouldn't have the same expectations of myself that I do maybe in my career over here as I will in this, because you will crash and burn quickly. So just really want to emphasize that,
Yeah,
being okay with being in beginner's mind and just not knowing, and that's okay. That's what your
yeah.
supervisors are for, that's what group is for, that's what your colleagues are for. It's okay, and it's okay to tell your client, I'm not sure about that, I'm going to have to get back to you on that, let's talk about that again next week, or I'll call you with that. Yeah.
When people can settle into that, they realize
Yes.
there's a wonderful freedom in it.
Yes.
I think just to say anyone who might be interested in applying to think about coming to our open house. My guess is it's going to be virtual this year. Maybe I can be hopeful and it wouldn't be, but it seems unlikely.
Yeah.
So usually I say, come get a feel for the building. And so I know it will be a little different, but I think it will still be a helpful thing for folks to hear more about us and also about the application process. We do have some great treatment rooms with expressive arts, sand tray, art therapy supplies. I'll try to have pictures of them so people can see them and hopefully be able to use them in the fall, and just to get to hear more about us. And our website is a great resource for getting that information. I'll keep it updated. And yeah, just excited to have, I always love having some CIIS students in our intern group. It really enriches everything.
Absolutely. And we will probably, the plan is to have another volunteer pre-service in this spring in 2021. So that would be March, April-ish, maybe a little sooner. That will most likely be online. And so anybody who might be interested in getting some experience before starting a practicum, or kind of get their foot in the door to really get a sense of what it's like, is welcome to apply for that as well. And that's a volunteer position, and that application's on the website. More information will be there. And so they're welcome to do that too. For some people, that's really helpful to get some kind of actual experience. For folks that maybe don't have any, and especially if they're doing a career change and they're like, I don't even know what this is about, it's a great way to kind of dip your toe into it and not feel completely lost when you start in the fall.